Welcome to episode 15 of the Busted Buttons video game podcast. Great to be back with you again. Missed last week, did not want to, but work was crazy. I had a lot going on. And then I was just an idiot, Red, because I said, hey, let's do the podcast on my day off, knowing that there was no way in hell that was actually going to happen. So I don't know why I tried to schedule, but anyways, just too much work. Had to finish some projects. So here we are. Don't like saying we're back, but we're kind of back. But this week, we're going to talk about The Last of Us. They released The Last of Us Part 2 State of Play recently. We're going to definitely talk about that. We're going to talk about confusing maps in video games and what kind of effect that has on us as players. We're going to talk a little bit about fast traveling, little things, and how they're not as special as they once were for us older gamers, is what you want to say. We need some more nostalgia. We're going to talk about enemies ganging up on you, just some punk-ass bitches in some games. We're going to get into that, and then we're going to talk about, lately, I've had a lot of mental exhaustion with these projects, dude. So we're going to talk about games that are great for mentally exhausted people, where you don't have to think a lot. And then we have some time after that, we're going to talk about some working out video games. Not a topic I really care for, so Red, let's try to stretch out the first topics that we have. But anyway,
I don't think that'll be a problem after that state of play.
Before we get into any of that, Red, I got to ask you, how is Death Stranding treating you?
Well, I feel a lot better now that I've actually given it more than 1 or 2 drunken hours. I'm about 10, 12 hours into it. I'm enjoying it, man. We're going to talk a little bit about kind of relaxing stuff, but something about just wandering around, picking up stuff to deliver and returning it, not even necessarily doing the actual missions and the actual main plot. It is kind of relaxing, until you run into some of the enemies, but that's a whole different story. But no, I'm enjoying it so far. The world is absolutely beautiful. The characters look unbelievable. And, of course, the cast that they got to play the characters so far has been rock solid. So I know you said it's you put about 100 hours into it, so I know I got a long way to go with it. So we'll see, but it has my interest now in a way that it just didn't quite grab that first time I fired it up. I'm blaming alcohol for that, like I blame alcohol for most of my problems.
Well, kind of going along with that, I've been trying to get into Control again recently. I actually just started up yesterday because, I've seen all these game awards for the game. And I'm just having a hard time getting into it. Well, one of the things is, we'll talk about this in the podcast, the confusing maps. But then, I just saw all these games awards, and sometimes it's just hard to get into a game. But I played other games that were like that, and I said, you know what? I'm going to power through. I'm going to beat them, and I've almost always enjoyed them. So I'm going to give Control another chance. Been playing a couple hours. We're going to go with that. But anyways, let's get away from that. That's not really what was on the agenda or the outline.
It's okay.
Let's talk The Last of Us Part 2 State of Play. This came out recently, and we're not going to. First of all, I don't think there's really any spoilers. It was kind of just more talking about the game setting and kind of the game mechanics. First of all, the game looks absolutely gorgeous.
Oh, yeah, it does.
They shot it in 4K, or, however you transfer over 4K through YouTube, but it looks absolutely amazing. And I'm actually kind of excited because a lot of the game takes place in Seattle, and I've never been to Seattle, but I've always been infatuated with it. For why? What reasons? I don't know. I guess it's we live in a flat city. There's elevation out there. There's ocean. Seems like there's a lot of cool shit out there in Seattle. So I'm kind of excited to get out there, and I'll let you talk a little bit about this stuff too, Red. But basically absolutely. They just kind of showed the settings, some of the mechanics, some of the combat. But was there anything in there, Red, that really caught your attention other than the game just looking absolutely gorgeous?
Well, I will say the videos, they showed about 20 minutes. Like you said, they had some gameplay in there, a couple little cinematics, but not much. They focused very much on gameplay, which was a nice change of pace from that Xbox Series X first look a couple weeks ago.
No shit, about time somebody.
Right. But it was one of the most brutal looking gameplays I'd seen. The entire 20 minutes is almost just you murdering people and murdering infected stuff and getting shot at. And I know the first game, yes. It's rated, it's a mature game. It very much is. It's a third-person combat-oriented game. But man, just watching what they chose to show off, and I get you're trying to show off the weapons, you're trying to show off the combat mechanics, But man, it seemed like every clip was you controlling this 19-year-old girl and either shooting somebody, stabbing somebody, or bashing somebody's head in with a spiked baseball bat. So it really caught me off guard, even though, the first game, like I said, it's a fairly brutal game. I mean, it's like I said, rated M for mature for a reason. And just that kind of caught me off guard a little bit, but it did give us a great sense of the combat mechanics in the game. And it does look that they've expanded on the first game quite a bit, just like in the number of weapons you have, the different approaches you can have to scenarios, and then like just the crafting of weapons looks like it's gotten a bit of an upgrade as well. So I remember in the first one, I think all I ever crafted was like Molotov cocktails. So it looks like in this one, it looks like in this one they've expanded on that a little bit to make your weapons and everything a little more customizable. So I get showing off the brutality from that standpoint. They wanted to show what the combat brings. And so I get it, but it just definitely caught me off guard. But one thing else that I kind of noticed, obviously in the world of The Last of Us, there's a bunch of infected out there that are trying to kill you. But most of this game looks like it's going to be a little more focused on human to human interactions in combat. Did you kind of get that sense too?
Yeah, I definitely did. I mean, overall, like you said, it starts off in Jackson, Wyoming, in like a community where there's a bunch of survivors. So obviously, you have the human interaction right there, but as they're showing off the gameplay, like they're showing, you're definitely fighting some infected, but there's also definitely a lot of human combat. For me, I don't particularly care for the, some people call it horror, some people don't. It's zombies. It scares the shit out of me, so I call it horror. But the whole zombie and horror genre, I don't really care for.
I'm with
Last of Us, I loved it. Oh, I didn't love that part of it. I love the story of The Last of Us, and I thought the mechanics were solid. But I don't know how I feel about that because I don't like zombies and all that. I do like kind of find humans more in my games. Yeah. But being that the last game focused so much on the infected, I kind of felt like the game was going to go that way, but it's one of those things, I'm going to give it a chance, see if I like it, see if I don't like it.
I'm pretty sure it's almost a day one purchase for both of us. Regardless.
Yeah, definitely day one purchase, but it did shock me. It also kind of shocked me. Like, I knew that we played as Ellie, but kind of what is Joel's place in all of this? Because the first game you mostly played as Joel, am I correct?
Yep.
Okay,
only a couple scenarios.
Ellie, but I can't remember.
Yeah,
but this game
much.
looks to be almost all Ellie. Maybe you play Joel here and there, but the thing that I didn't like about the state of play, like in the gameplay they showed, is it doesn't seem like Joel has that big of a part in the game, and I absolutely loved the connection that they had. Well, I guess they still do have it, but they had a lot of it in the first game, so you get some more human interaction, but then Joel looks like he's not playing as big of a part, so I don't know, but a little bit going along with the whole community and people. The game also appears to be more open world. Like we get Ellie is riding on horseback, and then she's also riding in a boat. Now, I don't think the game is completely open world, but it looks like it's not going to be straight linear. And that's something I'm excited about. Like, is that something that you're excited about?
I'm not really. Like, I mean, I like open world games. Obviously, we spent a lot of time talking about open world versus linear and all that and our preferences. But to me, I thought the first one was so, like, the narrative was such an important part of it that things like exploration was generally not needed. And I feel like it would have detracted from the strong story that they were telling. So for me, I'm worried that by opening it up a little more, that we start getting into that whole, hey, open world games have a hard time telling a strong story issue that has persisted in gaming for as long as I've been playing. So I'm all for like maybe having some bigger areas, like arenas, for lack of a better word, to fight your enemies. Like, maybe you get a couple of buildings and you can pick whatever approach that works best for you and your equipment and your play style. But I don't want it going to the point where it feels like a fully open world game where you're scavenging, you're collecting things, you've got all kinds of little like points of interest on the map. That's not The Last of Us to me. That is not what the first one was. And I get, hey, evolve. And if you can make bigger areas for like the actual encounters and the actual set pieces that gives you some more different ways you can approach the combat scenarios and everything, then I'm for it. I'm okay with that. I like having a little bit more variety and bigger sections. It's just, I don't want them going overboard and making it fully open world. And that's what concerned me when I saw her riding on the horseback, or I think you can travel on a boat as well. And I'm just like, I don't want this going that full direction because I want a nice, tight story for The Last of Us Part 2, like the first one was. And I think some of that other stuff, if you start throwing side quests and exploration in there, I feel like it can detract from the story, which I think is generally considered one of the best stories in all of gaming with the first one. So I'm so like bigger areas I'd be okay with for like the combat and the encounters. But other than that, man, keep it a little more linear, keep it focused so you can tell that strong story without all the fluff.
You can evolve, but don't be Zelda 2. Like, don't fall into that trap where you completely change the game. And Naughty Dog said this is their largest and most ambitious game, but you got to be very careful with that. It's like you're saying, like, yeah, you can add a little bit more. You can have a little bit more open world. But if you add too much of it, like, you kind of get away from, first of all, that franchise, and then also the developer gets away from who they are, because they also make Uncharted, which is a very similar, not a similar game, but like, it's linear and has a strong story, just like The Last of Us. Yeah, they might make some other stuff. I actually don't know.
Those are definitely their biggest ones. So,
but like, you just don't want to get too far away from that, because then, like I said, be ambitious, like add a little bit, but don't get away from that first game, because what really made that first game so great was the story and the game. And like I said, it was more linear, and so you can really focus on that story. And I think people are expecting I'm expecting a great story with part 2. So don't give me more. And here's one thing I'm worried about. Not so much the open world, because I can handle a little bit of that. Even though, you know what? I do like that linear game break sometimes, but a little bit open world I can handle. But here's my concern is all the weapons, the mods, the mechanics. When they were going through that gameplay, it seemed like it was a lot, man. Yeah. Like, I hit my levels with all that, Control. There's so much crap, like correspondence, letters, modifications and stuff. Yeah, I definitely like a little bit of that. Yeah. But in Control, within the first 5 hours, I've picked up like 500 pieces of mods. Like, I can't handle that shit. Like, I'm here talking about me being mentally exhausted. Like, don't give me too much, man. I have enough shit on my plate that I don't need all this. And that's one thing. Yes, I do love complexity in some games, but then, damn it, I like some games to be fucking simple,
Right.
And
just
so
give me a gun and an enemy. That's all I need.
Yeah, that's one thing that I'm worried about. And there's one thing before we kind of move on that I'm not happy about at all, and that's that they brought back fucking clickers, man. I fucking hate clickers. Yes. They were the worst enemies before BTs and Death Stranding. BTs are like on a whole different level, but I was upset they brought back the clickers. Were you upset about any of the infected or anything like that they brought back?
I was thinking the exact same thing when he says, well, now we're going to talk about some of the enemies, and he mentions the clickers. I'm like, I hated those fuckers so much. I think everyone hated them. They just locked onto you, and instant death. I mean, there was literally nothing you could do about it. It's just so I'm not surprised they brought him back. They're an iconic enemy for this. I guess it's a series now, but it's still. I was like, oh, I'm the same way. But I was kind of happy to see that there are going to be more forms of the infected. They showed like a bigger, like kind of more armored one that then like shoots out like spores or something like that. And they hinted, but they didn't show like an even bigger, like more advanced form of an infected. They didn't say what it was. They didn't show it or any of its mechanics or anything, but they hinted that there's even more to come. So I am excited that that'll keep, hopefully keep the enemies feeling a little fresh from the first game. So, but that was, nothing else really disappointed me. I was hesitant to even watch the state of play because I know there's spoilers and all that out there for this game, and I've been trying like hell to avoid them because.
Well, I wouldn't have told you to watch it for this podcast if I knew there were spoilers in it. Like I said, they were just mostly giving details. Yeah, a little bit of gameplay, but it's just basically showing modifications and stuff like that. So there wasn't really a lot. But anyways, we're sitting here, we're talking about The Last of Us 2 having a bigger map. But does that mean that the map is going to be more confusing? Because, we had a linear game first, and then once you get more advanced, and it's not like an open world game, because open world games and maps are completely different. Yeah, but when you're having a game like, that's not open world, the map can become confusing. And like I said early on, this or in another podcast, I don't remember if I said in this podcast early on, but one of the main struggles I have had with Control is the map. Like the map is just, I would say for the most part, it's a linear game, but like you can go different directions inside this building from where I'm at right now in the game. And like, it is just confusing. I'm like, which rooms have I been to? There's different floors. I think the map is shit, which actually I think there's a lot of good stuff in the game, but the way the map is laid out, I don't care for it at all. And to me, like, it can be a really big turnoff to a game, and it can actually make me quit a game. And then, like, also Shameless Returns on the 3DS is another example of this. A game I've really actually never got into the Metroid franchise. Just one of those things I just simply have not sat down and played. But, I wanted to try when they released Shameless Returns on the 3DS, and I didn't even get past the first level, man, because it was like backtracking, going like, it was only a cave, and it was 2D, but I got so lost, I couldn't remember where I went. I had to backtrack a lot, and eventually I just gave up. And like, I know it's an issue that I have.
Yeah.
Like, is this an issue with some of the games that you play?
It really is. And part of it is, as games have gotten more and more advanced, you're seeing more and more verticality to levels, areas, the world, whatever. And it's so hard to represent that on a 2D map. Control's a perfect example. Like, they try to show, like, okay, if they're on the lower level, it's slightly more shaded or a slightly darker shade of gray, whatever. But it's so hard to tell really where you're at in there. And even Zelda games, the more recent ones that actually, had dungeons, not like Breath of the Wild. But
Spamo man. Still never seen their traditional dungeons, my ass.
But like, even some of the more like current Zelda games where there's so many levels to the dungeons, it's becoming harder and harder for the map to even be all that useful. So like, the Control suffered from it. The Samus Returns, I kind of understand that one a little bit, because the whole Metroid and Castlevania franchise, you hear the term Metroidvania games. They're all about basically just exploring the map, and they require so much backtracking. You find items that let you get to new areas of the map. Like, those games have been built upon like these ever expanding maps that make you explore and make you like I said, have to do a lot of backtracking. And that's not really our favorite thing in the world.
No, it's not.
No, so to me, but it is something I've run into. And like I said, I think verticality and complexity, as our technology has gotten better and our games have gotten bigger, is really a driving factor in that. But you'd think they'd come up with a way to make a better map to go with it. I mentioned because most maps are like 2D, you're looking an overhead view of an area. Now, I know Breath of the Wild with the Divine Beasts tried to have a bit of a 3D map, but that confused me just as much. That was like trying to rotate it around to really get a feel for where you were. And then like when you're looking through part of it, you can't clearly see like walls or rooms, how it was all sectioned off. So to me, like, I'm not sure what the solution is. And I don't want to just say, make simpler levels, make simpler dungeons, because that's, I don't want to go that route. Mm-hmm. But I'm absolutely with you. There have been some games that are really a struggle in terms of the map. Sorry, I totally lost my thread there.
That's fine. I've never done that before.
Yeah, but I do like that you mentioned, though, that open worlds are kind of a different beast, because those things are made for exploring, and it's on such a different scale than your games like Control, Samus Returns, even a Zelda game outside of Breath of the Wild. Like, I'm fine with a huge map that you maybe have to, unveil certain areas of it as you travel for an open world, because that exploration of the world is the point.
Well, it's all flat. Like, and what I mean by that being flat is there's no Yes, there's verticality like in mountains and stuff, but the map is just flat. There's no levels to it. Exactly. So that's why open world gaming is different. And here's the thing, like, you brought up Zelda, which some of you know, we do two guys playing Zelda. So a lot of times that's why we bring up Zelda, but at the same time, we try to keep all our Zelda talk over there. So you know what? Yeah. You know what? Zelda's a video game, so we can talk about it if we want to. But
it's a pretty iconic franchise. I say we can talk about it.
But the thing with Zelda is, okay, first of all, we've been doing these maps in different levels for the longest time. But with Zelda, it's not the whole game. Yeah. Like, you go around an open world, like, or a big world, and then when we get to the dungeons, that's when you have, like, these maps with different levels. A game like Control, that is the game. The whole, or at least from what I've played so far, the whole game is going around this map. And, like, for The Last of Us, like, it's all linear, but, like, actually, I don't know if there's ever a map in The Last of Us, but what I'm saying is,
I don't think there
was. If there was a map, the whole game is not a map.
Yeah.
And so it's just something that, I don't know, just, it can really turn me off to a game. Like, I just hate backtracking. I hate trying to find out where I went. And when you get away from a game for a while, that is the hardest thing to come back to. Is like if you don't know exactly where to go and you don't want to backtrack, like that makes it so hard to get back to the game. And I'm pretty sure I called it Seamus instead of how you say it, Samus?
I always say Samus.
I was thinking of isn't there a wrestler named Seamus?
There is a wrestler named Seamus.
Yeah, that's what I was thinking of. I told you I never played Metroid, so I don't know the names and how to.
I just always just call her the Metroid chick.
yeah. But kind of talk about how confusing Mac and because I don't know the transition.
no, you've lost your thread
I'm sitting
too.
here trying to read it out loud, like what the fuck is the transition? But kind of talking about confusing map.
Jesus.
One of the ways that we kind of get past that is by fast traveling. But really something like fast traveling is something that you don't want to use too much. I know this is something with Skyrim that I fell into a big trap of. But really, kind of what's your whole opinions on fast travel? Do you use them a lot? Do you only use them here and there? Like, have they ruined games for you if you do it too much? Kind of just talk about the whole thing.
I would say for me, fast travel, I use it more the further I get into a game. Like, I as you all know, if you listen to us, I just finished Assassin's Creed Origins not too long ago. And once I'd kind of explored most of the world and I was just kind of going through and checking the boxes to finish it up, then I was using fast travel a lot. Like, just because I'm getting near the end of the game, I just want to check off these last couple things to do and then finish the game. I've already wandered around in it for 80 hours. I don't need to do a whole lot more exploring.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
So for me, I mean, I'm thankful I got into open world gaming. One of my very first experiences was with Morrowind, which, as you know, I'm one of my all-time favorite games, absolutely outstanding game. The mechanics have aged a little bit, but anyway, and their fast travel was very naturally integrated into the world. Like you had to actually go rent a boat or another form of or use go to a mage's guild where they had someone there that teleported you. So it wasn't quite like, games now where once you activate like a tower or a point, you can just warp there from anywhere. So for me, Morrowind being one of the first open world games I played, it forced me to explore the world naturally before I could even start taking advantage of the fast travel. So I thought because of that, anytime now, like Oblivion, Skyrim, or the newer Assassin's Creed games, Breath of the Wild, like it's just ingrained in me that especially early on in a game, I really would rather just be exploring on foot and not fast traveling. So like I said, once I've got 100 hours into a game and I'm just kind of trying to knock out the last couple things, at that point, I pretty much start fast traveling everywhere just because I'm trying to finish it. So for me, it's one of those things that ramps up the more I play the game. But like you said, when you first jump in, you want to experience that world. You want to wander around in that world. So it is a huge quality of life thing, though. I know, especially as people get older and have more responsibilities, you don't have a lot of time to just sit down and walk from point A to point B. You want to jump in, get something done, and jump back out. I know we talked about that a little bit in one of our previous podcasts. Jump in, play for 10 minutes, feel like you accomplished something. You can't do that if you're just wandering from point A to point B.
It's kind of like you're saying, there's different types of gamers. Like, there's some gamers, they want to take an open world game and beat it like in 30 to 40 hours, like as quick as they can. Like, I kind of used to be like that. Like I said, with Skyrim. With Skyrim, I got into it. I just fast traveled everywhere. And then I beat it. And I was like, damn, I really missed the whole point of this game and what it's about. But there are those gamers out there that just want to fast travel, bang, 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 knock it out. You got to feel like you accomplished something. I understand that. And there's always going to be those gamers out there. So I think it's something that you have to offer. Because like you said, there are people that we have lives, but there are people that have lives and are like, screw walking around everywhere. Me, I think it's peaceful as hell now. I get away from my kids, at least in a video game. They might be screaming beside me, but I can just take a nice stroll down a creek and, and relax. So I don't play that way, but other gamers do. So you kind of got to have it in there. One reason that I don't like fast traveling, especially early in the games, I'm kind of like you. I do it later in the game.
Yeah.
But like you get more items. Like you need all this stuff to upgrade your weapons, your gear, everything. And you get that stuff from walking the world. You also come across quests that you wouldn't come across if you were walking.
Oh, yeah.
You talk to people, you get all these different, I wouldn't call them quests, but like, these like little tasks. Like I know in Assassin's Creed Odyssey, like they have these little things, they have timers on them, like where it's like you just go do a delivery and you get experience points for that.
Simple stuff. Yeah,
you only get that if you're walking around the world. Now, here's the thing. Like, if I'm, like, in Odyssey, Assassin's Creed Odyssey, so people don't think I'm talking about Mario or being smartasses that I'm talking about Mario, because a couple people have done that. like there's a lot of islands, obviously, because it is Greece. So if I'm on one island and like I don't have a boat, I'm not swimming like 1,000 yards or feet or whatever to get to the next island. I'm going to fast travel. So that's an example right there where, okay, I don't mind walking, but if I got to swim across a bunch of water, no thanks, I'm good. And then also, and this is definitely when you get towards the end of the game, like if you got to travel from one side of the map all the way over to the other side of the map, I'm fast traveling there. Like, so, yeah, I don't use it a lot. I like to explore the world. I think that's the best way to level up both on experience points and also level up and upgrade your gear. I think walking around, like I don't even like riding on horseback. I just like walking around because the horse mechanics, especially on PC. Now, I didn't try a lot of it, but on PC, I was like, oh God, I cannot do this.
Yeah.
But like I just think because when you do it on horse, like I guess we could kind of consider horseback riding a little bit of a fast travel mechanic.
It kind of is,
but when you do that, like I always found myself staying on a path. Like, or like, avoiding trees and all this stuff. Whereas if you're walking, you're going through all these trees, you're going over these hills, you're going across creeks. So that's the way, kind of do it. I'm kind of wrapped up with that whole point. Is there anything else you kind of want to say on it?
No, but I think that's a good spot to kind of like move to our next thing, because you mentioned like the sights you get to see when you're walking. You have beautiful things, especially in like these fantasy setting games or historical setting games like the Assassin's Creed. You get the beautiful landscape, you get rivers, waterfalls, sunrises, suns, all that stuff. And it's funny because I know how many times when you and I have been playing games, have we been like, that waterfall over there looks awesome. It's like breathtaking. But now I feel like, and this is something I experience, and I'm sure you do as well, that feeling of specialness has kind of just diminished over time. Like little things that we used to really love and just stop and admire, now we just kind of see it and keep on moving because it's kind of really become the norm. Is that something that you're experiencing as well, the more and more we play these like advanced, beautiful video games?
Hell yes, man. I mean, that's one thing that I don't necessarily hate about video game, but it does make me mad because, it's that whole nostalgia thing. Like back in the day, something simple like, I know in Zelda once again, Dodongo's Cavern, like you go across that wooded bridge on on the top in that main room. And like when I was younger, like I thought that was the most amazing thing ever. And same thing with like, getting water and waterfalls in game. I remember the first time in Ocarina of Time that we got like a sunrise and a sunset because I believe that was one of the first games to do it. And at that time, man, it was just mind blowing. Like it was just absolutely gorgeous, which is crazy to even think about because if you go back and play it nowadays, it honestly doesn't even look that real because, polygons and, all those weird shapes. But like it's sad, but like, that it's the norm now. Like we expect this. We expect great waterfalls. We expect great water scenery. We expect great sunrises and sunsets, in particular games. Like, linear games, they don't have to have this element that much. And I would say even the hub games, like I think God of War, I don't remember really a change of day in that one. Do you?
No, not really.
Okay, so, I mean, yes, it sucks, man. Yes, it's all nostalgia based. I mean, but there's so many, like I'm playing, this happens the most for me in open world games. I think it definitely has to do with the scenery. Like I was playing Assassin's Creed Odyssey like I've been playing, and I was going through a little part of the village that had this like little wooden bridge that went over like a little creek. It was absolutely gorgeous, man. And like I didn't even really think about it. Like I just walked across and I was on my way, and like, yes, we gotta keep on advancing games. And so these are going to feel more and more like the norm, and it's not going to feel as special anymore. But damn it, at the same time, I still miss it.
I do too, and it's funny you mentioned Ocarina of Time. I remember one of the first things that jumped in my mind when you talk about like just stopping and trying to look around. The very beginning of the game, when you're leaving the Kokairi Woods and going into the Hyrule Field for the very first time, and that's just that little transition area. It's just a little bridge over part of the over part of the forest. You stop, you talk to Saria and all that good stuff. Saria, however you say it. And it's a simple little area, but you still stop and try to look at like the forest in the background and things like that. And I remember playing a game, and I think this was back on the original Xbox. It was a game called Baldur's Gate Dark Alliance. The water effects, like you jump in a puddle and just like the ripples of the water blew my mind. I mean, I would sit there and just stand in a puddle for 5 minutes, just making little rings because they nailed the water effects so well in that game. And it was one of the first times I'd really seen that. And so to me, part of it, yes, the advance of the graphics has meant that we just kind of take it for granted now. And it's harder and harder for something to catch our attention as truly beautiful like that. And I do miss it too. I'm 100% with you that it's just when we were first seeing those technological advances as younger people, like whether we're teens, however old, depending on when these systems came out for everyone, like you're like, oh my God, the littlest things blew our minds. It cracks me up. Even when we did our Mario Kart 8 track ranking not all that long ago for our YouTube channel, how many times did we stop and talk about waterfalls? On levels.
a lot.
We just love they always look beautiful but it's great when we still have those moments where something truly catches your eye and you just stop and appreciate it. But it seems to be happening less and less for me personally. Part of it is now you've got these giant open world games that are almost photorealistic in terms of their environments that it's just you see so many waterfalls, bridges, sunrises, sunsets as you're playing a 100-hour game, little villages in the hills that you become desensitized to it. And it truly takes something extraordinary now to really stop and be like, whoa, okay, that is breathtaking, and it's just, it's getting harder and harder to find those moments. I mean, part of that, of course, is just the nature of, when you sink 100 hours into all these giant open world games, you just see it so many times. But I'm 100% with you, and it is funny to think back on the moments in gaming that we were like, wow, that is beautiful, or seems so special compared to now where it's all almost routine.
Well, I mean, you talk about going through these big cities. Like I remember back in the day, like, you go to these little towns like Zelda again, Kakariko Village, and I had I don't know, 6 or 7 houses, and you're like, oh man, this village is cool, but I want to go to a town. Like I want to go to this huge town. And then you get to something like Novigrad and The Witcher, and you're like, I'm not going to all these places. This is way too big. There's too much stuff to do. So it's like, here you are, you want this, and then you get it, and you're like, oh man, that's way too much. I don't want all of that stuff because I did not do near as much as you could probably do in Novigrad. You could spend almost probably, I'm not going to say 100 hours. You could spend a lot of times in Novigrad, in Witcher 3. By the way, if you all have not played Witcher 3, go out and play it. It's one of the best games ever made. It's my favorite game. We are going to talk about it one day, like we're going to talk about all these other games and franchises. Yep. We just haven't had time to sit down and do it, but we are going to do it. But anyways, you talk about it being photorealistic and stuff. Here's the one thing I do love about gaming nowadays, and that's that it feels like you can escape more. Yes. Like it feels like being more realistic. It feels like you are actually in a world that is more human-like, or if you're playing some other game that doesn't involve humans, it still feels real. Ocarina of Time and all these early games, in the early PS, Xbox, and Nintendo days, it looked cool, but I wouldn't necessarily say it felt real because the graphics just weren't there.
Yep.
Nowadays, when you walk around in some of these games, I mean, you can literally escape. And that's one of the main reasons that I love video games, because, you got work, you got kids, you got all this stress, you got all, I'm mentally exhausted, I got all these things going on. I can go into a game world and it's almost it's not real life, but it's getting there. And with the next gen, we're going to get even closer to that. So it offers that escape, and it's just awesome. And these big, they're little details that we're talking about, but they're still you can see them with your eyes. They're big.
They add up.
But I think nowadays what we kind of look at is the little details. This is what means the most to us in games. You kind of talked about Mario Kart, looking in the background and seeing those little things. I think as you're kind of going through these games, we start looking more for these little details, and those stand out more to us. Do you feel the same way on that?
I really do. And I remember the first time I fired up God of War on the PlayStation Pro. It was really my first foray into, quote unquote 4K gaming, and just his hut, his little house, his cabin. Yeah. It just I just stood there and took a picture of him next to his cabin. I'm like, the detail on just the wood was mind-blowing. And of course, that game's got some amazing scenes and amazing scenery in it. But just narrowing in on something like the wood paneling on the side of his house. like blew my mind. I'm like, okay, yeah, I'm glad I'm playing this game. So, but you're absolutely right. It is those little details now, I feel like. And I guess, you talk about bridges, waterfalls, things like that. It's always kind of been the little stuff. But man, it's getting harder and harder to have those aha moments. But I do have to circle back around one thing real quick. You mentioned not exploring everything to do in Novigrad. I can say I did explore every bar and whorehouse in Novigrad.
Well, yeah, of course. You're going to check out the brothels. I posted something on Facebook the other day. It's like talking about all the dialogue options that get you to sex. And it was like these mathematical equations and stuff that had Geralt just like going through all these equations to try to figure out which dialogue option to choose. So yeah, definitely went to all the bars, went to all the brothels. Actually, the bars in that game were one of my favorite places because like a lot of them have like a music element. Sometimes there was people on stage playing music, or there was like, actors doing a play, and we'll talk about that more in detail on a podcast, but that's one of the very many things that makes that game so great. But here's another concept that's sometimes expected, but it's not always welcome, and that's all these punk-ass bitch enemies ganging up on you, and damn, am I experiencing this in Assassin's Creed Odyssey, and it's not making me as mad as it was, like, because early on in the game, like, you don't have a lot of, like, health, and you can't deal a lot of damage. Yeah. But, man, early on, I was getting my butt kicked by, like, because I would fight one person, and then, like, 2 or 3 more would come and, like, attack me. Now, this is where the element of stealth comes in, knock a couple out before, like, you go in there, which... is what I did, because we talked about this. I am getting better at stealth. I do use it, but still, in Assassin's Creed Odyssey, I'll kill 3 or 4 of them, and then I'll be like, okay, there's only 1 or 2 left, and then I'll, come out, I'll fight that dude, and then out of nowhere, there's like 3 or 4 of his closest pals. Like, where the hell did you come from, dude? And then there's this punk mercenary that comes out of freaking nowhere. These guys... level 25, I'm a level 27, my ass. These guys are kicking my butt. And it's just something that, like, as I've gotten more skills, better weapons, better moves, it has gone down a little bit, but man, it can really piss you off in gaming because I think at one time, I had like 10 people fighting me in Odyssey. I'm like, damn, this is too much, especially considering that I took out some enemies before this. Right. So that's another thing. It won't make me rage quit a game. But, I mean, there are times when I go into somewhere, I get my butt kicked, like, even if I'm using stealth, and then, like, talk about an open world game, I might not go back to that point of interest the rest of the game. So, I understand it. I understand why it's there, but it can be upsetting. How do you feel about it?
It can be, and I experienced something similar with Assassin's Creed Origins. They had, once you hit a certain point in the game, there started to be bounty hunters that kind of wandered the map, and you could mostly avoid them because, they showed where they were on the map, but they were, like you said, the level 25 to level 40 type characters.
Yeah, those were the mercenaries that I was talking about in Odyssey. It's the same concept.
Yeah, and it sucks whenever you're like clearing out a fort or something or doing one of your missions and you hear the music that means one of them is close. You're like, God damn it, is there a way I can get him to fight someone else? Which I will say, it is nice that at least in Origins, you could sometimes, like, you would see one of those mercenaries fighting a different group, and they would kind of like, obviously usually the mercenary would win because they're the higher level characters, but at least they would whittle down a little bit of his health. So I did enjoy that you could kind of sometimes play them off against each other, but man, getting ganged up like that, it seems like that's something that really did start in like the Assassin's Creed Origins with having those mercenaries, like you mentioned. But then just any time that you're clearing out a place and one fucker spots you and sends the alert, and then reinforcements arrive, and you're like, I'd cleared out like 80% of this area, and I couldn't quite get that one fucker with my bow before he set off the alarm.
Man, it can honestly be mentally exhausting. Taking on all these enemies, because there is an element of a strategy that you have to use to defeat all of them. And then if you keep on dying, like, you just keep on getting more and more frustrated, which kind of brings me to my next point. Like, because I've been mentally exhausted lately. And it kind of makes me think about games that, like, are great for mental exhaustion, because, my job, like, I've been in busy season, and when it gets going, like, I do a lot of analytics. And so when it gets going, like, dude, I will just wear my brain out. And, like, it's hard for me to come back. Like Assassin's Creed Odyssey, I can play similar ways. Like, going to a point of interest. Yeah. But, like, taking on a bunch of enemies or doing a quest or stuff, it's just too much. And so I kind of want to have a conversation on this, you can kind of give your games out if you have any. But what are some great games that you play that you think are great for mental exhaustion?
Well, just in general, you mentioned like Assassin's Creed, if you're playing it that particular way, like open world games where you can kind of sometimes just wander.
Yes.
Like Breath of the Wild is absolutely perfect for this. The Witcher 3, if you're not trying to, like I said, or Assassin's Creed, if you're not trying to do objectives, you're just kind of wanting to space out for a little while, let your brain reset. Open world games just wandering like that are so good for that. But then, I think even though they're competitive, like some sports games, you talk racing games where it's kind of something repetitive. Yeah. Any of the Tiger Woods golf games, even when you hit bad shots, it's like real golf. If I'm on the golf course, I'm having fun. I don't care how bad I'm playing because it means I'm not at work. I'm probably drinking a beer, smoking a cigar, and having fun. So Tiger Woods golf has always been, a nice go-to relaxing.
It's just too bad they made the last game like 10 years ago. But,
right. I guess now it's just the tour or whatever the hell it is.
Well, it used to be Rory McIlroy, and then I guess he didn't pan out the way everybody wanted to. And I think, like you said, it's like just PGA Tour or something now. Bring back Tiger. We're past the scandal. Bring back Tiger Woods PGA Tour, please. But go ahead, Red.
But and then just, it's a couple of games I've played recently, in the last like 6 months or so, or some of these indie, just kind of walking simulator games where there's a good narrative, but really it's just the whole game is about just go here, go here, go here. There are objectives, but there's not so much like, it's not action, it's not, strategy or stealth, anything like that. They're all about experiencing whatever story that they're trying to tell, the game creators are trying to tell in like a little 4 to 6 hour game. Like I played through Firewatch recently and it was a blast. It was a very relaxing experience. You weren't having to worry about dying. You weren't having to worry about, killing enemies. It wasn't that kind of game. And you hear the term, like they're called walking simulators because a huge point of the game is just going from point A to point B to trigger the next part of the narrative. So those are perfect for when you just, you're not looking for the stress of the gameplay. Gone Home is one of the ones that's considered one of the most popular and most famous ones. Just those kind of games are great for unwinding.
So is there a lot of text in those games?
Some. It just depends. Firewatch was all voice acted. So
okay, because like you're talking about this, I've actually not heard about this concept of walking simulators.
Yeah.
And like I actually kind of really like the idea because there are those games where I just like walking from a point, like, point A to point B, don't fight anybody, don't have any quests, and I just like doing something. A good example of that is actually in Odyssey. Like there's these certain quests where you just deliver something. I'm like, absolutely. Oh man, this is a nice refresher right here. Like all I have to do is go deliver something. So like, I kind of like, I'm going to have to look into this whole Firewatch and walking simulators. Red, you stimulated me here, and I kind of like this idea.
I can send you a few that I've really enjoyed, or that either I've enjoyed them or they're really well reviewed. So, and they're, like I said, they're just perfect for when you just need to, you don't want the intensity. You don't want your heart rate racing because you're trying to kill that last enemy, without dying. It's just, you just get to experience a short, simple narrative. Plus, most of them are like really, seriously, 4 to 6 hour games. Like Firewatch, I think I got through in about 6. There's one called Kentucky Route Zero that it says basically takes about 8 hours. Gone Home, I know, is relatively short. And they're cheap, though, too. They're all indie games. They're like $10-15 a pop. So... they're a nice brain cleanse, from some of these other games.
I've heard about Kentucky Route Zero, so I might check that out sometime. Me, and you've all heard me talk about it like numerous times. Forza. Absolutely love playing Forza, and it is fantastic for mental exhaustion. And while I was thinking about this topic, I thought about almost putting Mario Kart, but Mario Kart has the items and everything, so there's not a lot of thinking, but there is some thinking. There is some strategy. But with Forza, man, and this is why I love it. Like, just put me in a great car and just let me go.
Yep.
And, for me, when I get mentally exhausted, I just have to push on, the gas and just go. For me, it's, great therapy. And, I'm really big into cars. I don't know a lot about cars and how to fix them, how to repair them. I don't know any of that crap. I kind of like looking at them, know what models or what, I kind of have a fascination in that way. So for me, it's kind of cool to get in these 70s, 80s muscle cars or in an exotic car like a Ferrari. Saw a Ferrari the other day, by the way. It was awesome.
What the hell it was doing in this town?
It was at the golf course that we play at.
Oh, that makes sense.
Yeah, well, golf course isn't that nice. But I was shocked that was there, but it's so cool to be able to get like I said, in these 70 cars or in a present day exotic car, there's a wide range of cars obviously it's the biggest, racing franchise in video gaming, I think.
Right now.
If it's not, I'd be shocked what it is.
Yeah.
And so for me, like, that's my go-to. Like, on game, I can just get going, like, just relieve some of the mental exhaustion. I don't know if you can actually relieve mental exhaustion, but just get through it.
Recharge your battery. It recharges your battery.
And then another game that, like, I think is great for it is platformers that aren't too fucking difficult. Ori, Unravel, what was the other one? Celeste. Like, y'all heard me, bitch. Make your damn platforms easier. I love 2D platforms, but I can't play them because y'all make them so damn hard. Why do they have to be so hard? Mario games aren't hard, and we still enjoy them. So quit thinking that because you have a 2D platformer, you gotta make it the most fucking difficult game in the world. You do not. Assholes. But anyway,
man, I haven't heard you go off like that here in a little while.
Like, just because I love platformers. I love 2D platformers, and I don't play enough of them because they're too damn hard. But anyway,
that's why you never finished Donkey Kong Country Tropical Freeze, right?
Yeah, I got to the final boss. I experienced that game. I didn't experience the other games because I couldn't get through the first level.
That's true.
But kind of ended up here, like, platformers like Mario and any of these 2D platformers, I think are great for things like that. Did you have any other games that you kind of want to throw out there, Red?
No, those were really it. I mean, at the end of the day, any game that you're just comfortable with and familiar with, like, I know we mentioned, like, maybe the ones that really get your heart rate going aren't the best for this, but I can still pick up Halo. I can pick up Halo and just play a little bit of the campaign. It's just like, it's like putting on an old glove, because we've played so many hundreds of hours of Halo in our lives that, like, that's a game that, yes, even though it's an action, violent game that you would think would not be great for mental exhaustion, it's so familiar. Yeah. And we can slide back into a game like that, and it's like coming home. I mean, it is. So it's just, anything that is that familiar for you, I think is just, you don't have to think about the controls. You don't have to learn new things. You just, like, pick up the controller and that muscle memory comes right back. So.
Well, Red, we did a great job, man. We talked long enough to skip the workout video games, and we're just going to take that off the outline.
Episode.
And I don't even know why I wrote that down on the outline. We're not going to talk about working out video games. Hopefully, I'm not going to throw it completely off the plate, but it just seems like a stupid-ass topic.
I know it works for some people. At the beginning of the quarantine when people couldn't go to the gym anymore.
It works for some people, but talking about, I don't know. But let's go ahead. Let's wrap up. Once again, fantastic show. Good to get away a little bit. Like, I missed it last week, so we got to talk a little video gaming.
Me too.
But all these links will be in the description. You can support us on Patreon or PayPal. If you can't support us financially, feel free to leave a review or a rating. That 5 stars is very easy to click. And if you don't like us, and if you don't think we're 5 stars, it's very easy to lie and hit that 5 stars. So just please help us out there. We have merchandise on our websites, Two Guys Playing Zelda and TGPC Gaming. We may earn a commission if you go through our links. It's affiliate marketing, people. That's what it is. We make a little bit of money. You help us out a little bit if you buy some stuff on our websites. And you're going to third-party websites, so you're still going to a good, trusted website.
Absolutely.
And then, Red, do you want to kind of talk about our Facebook groups, YouTube, Discord, blah, blah?
Yeah, absolutely. We're all over social media. We've got our Facebook groups. We got Gaming Realm, where we talk about just all types of video gaming. Anything video gaming related you want to talk about. We got Zelda Realm, where, of course, we focus specifically on Zelda. As we mentioned earlier, we are also Two Guys Playing Zelda. So check us out on Facebook. We're on YouTube. We actually got a new video up not too long ago on our Two Guys Playing Zelda channel. So definitely check that out. Discord, great place for all kinds of video game discussion. We talk Zelda. We talk all Nintendo, PlayStation, Xbox. We got sports and alcohol channels on there for crying out loud. We talk about everything on our Discord server. And just always, as always, we're on Twitter. We're on Instagram, we're on Facebook, so go find us. And hopefully everyone, as we're getting kind of closer to, hopefully, fingers crossed, the end of this stay-at-home, shelter-in-place stuff, I hope everyone stays safe, stays responsible, and keeps on playing video games. And thank you guys very much.